JO's moves to November, the Best of Texas tournament is underway, and excerpts from a conversation with St. Mark's head coach Mihai Oprea on this week's TXWaterpolo show. Here we go. It's the TXWaterpolo Podcast. I'm James Smith in beautiful Austin, and Joe's behind a desk somewhere in North Texas. So, Joe, are the days kind of bleeding together yet? Because I swear up until a couple hours ago, I thought it was Wednesday.
No, not quite yet for me. I mean, we had Easter this past weekend, and I think I'm keeping track of Saturday, Sunday, and then during the week a little bit more. Just the weekends are free now. It used to be water polo all the time. Now it's no water polo. So.
It's still water polo all the time. I hear from you on the weekends too. You're the hardest working man in rock and roll.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have so much content the next coming weeks, including we're going to get into the best of Texas contest that we're basically having. But first, we got to go over some of this calendar stuff because there's a huge announcement this last week about JO's. Junior Olympics has been delayed. What else can you tell us about what you know about that? So
JO's has been postponed or moved to or shifted to. The 14, 12, and 10 and under boys and girls are going to be the first weekend of Thanksgiving. That'll be that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of Thanksgiving break. So that'll be November 21 through November 24th. That's still going to be up in the Northern California kind of area. And that's boys and girls together. Again, the 14s, 12s, and 10s. The 18s and 16s are going to be boys and girls together, which is going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And that'll be December 27th through December 30th. That'll be in Irvine, California.
Okay.
In Orange County. So,
did you have any sense for how these decisions were made? I know they're not easy ones, and I'm just curious about if you have any insight into how this came about.
I mean, obviously, I kind of work for USA Water Polo. I mean, it's no one really knows what's going to be happening this summer, and the pool availability for not just having an event, but it's also the teams that would be competing in an event.
Right.
So there has been talk about teams are going to be able to get back in June, or they're not going to be able to get back in until August. And we don't know right now, and we may not know for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And I think USA Water Polo, we wanted to get everybody the word out as soon as possible, just so people can plan.
Yeah.
And
it's
I mean, is it ideal? Of course not. I think everybody would love to have. I think everybody would love to have the JOs at the time this year, but it's going to be that would have been a lot less teams, but this year now it gives everybody plenty of time to plan. And they pick times to where you can still have a kind of a 4-day tournament. And I think the solution is incredible. I mean, are there going to be challenges? Of course, there's going to be challenges.
It's going to be cold.
So there's everybody has to buy the team parkas.
Yep. Parkas.
So
you got to do it.
But it's also cold in Northern California in the mornings and evenings in August. So I mean, it's going to be a little chilly, sure, but I mean, this is going to be one of those years where no one's going to forget about their JO experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be very positive for everybody that is going to be playing.
Well, let's go into that actually in a minute because that's a very good point. We also know, well, there's what news is there about Welcome to Texas Shootout? Is there anything else that you can share about that?
So the Welcome to Texas Shootout has been tentatively rescheduled for Labor Day weekend, which is September 5th, 6th, and 7th. It was scheduled for Memorial Day weekend. It has now been moved off of that weekend in May and put in September. So that'll be September 5th, 6th, and 7th this year. It's still going to be in San Antonio. We're still hoping to get a bunch of teams from outside of the state to come in all the various age groups and divisions. So we're really trying to kind of have that event in San Antonio on a good weekend at a wonderful facility.
Yeah, that place is great.
It will move back to the Memorial Day weekend time in 2021, but this is, again, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made there, and the calendar is tough, but you know what, there's nothing historically been scheduled in Texas on Labor Day weekend, so that's why we chose that weekend. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that facility's awesome. Like that I'm hoping that becomes like a very big tradition for people to travel to that tournament. But
and then so that's a big domino that kind of went down. We know about JOs now, so now all the clubs can get together and plan. So we're talking about kind of when are the best times to have JO quals. Now we can start putting in other events like, you know, tags or the events that are already scheduled in the fall, or they have to move here or there. The ODP dates, or they have to move here or there. And these are lots of discussions that are going to be happening here over the next couple of weeks. Then hopefully we'll have a kind of a big super summer, fall, winter season schedule that comes out here by the end of April. So.
Well, given that you have had these conversations, and you and others have as well, the key event is that the key item is that JOs have been delayed. Given that, what do you think is going to happen this summer? Like how is it going to shake out, do you think?
Well, we still have another domino that needs to be played, and that's going to be the high school season. We still don't know. As of right now, it's just been suspended. It hasn't been canceled. Like the UIL and the schools are still all set to start back up on kind of May 4th. We don't know if that's going to be pushed back or not. We don't know. I mean, the UIL is probably waiting for the schools, and then the schools are probably waiting for the governor to act. And, you know, so once the UIL knows, then we were going to try to maybe, like, if the UIL is able to have events again, the TXWaterpolo season, they're going to try to have a championship.
Right.
And I believe the latest that they can probably do it is mid to late June. So this right now, I mean, that's of course if we get back in the water here in May and early June. But, you know, that's going to be the next big thing that kind of gets ticked off the checklist.
Okay. Any idea about things like JO qualifiers or zone championships or anything like that?
Well, I mean, like the JO qualifiers, for the 14 and 12 was going to be hosted by Thunder in North Texas this summer, and the JO quals for the 18s and 16s was going to be hosted by the Cypher Water Polo Club this summer. Now, the good thing is they both also already have tournaments in the fall. The Armadillo Classic for Thunder, and then the Shark Fest for the Cypher group. So now, you know, there's talk about, you know, kind of, are we going to have them together with their other previous events? Are we going to combine them? Are we going to just move stuff around?
Oh, interesting.
So, I mean, there's a lot of options on the table. We have the Southwest Zone Events Committee that meets every couple months, and we're kind of be meeting this upcoming Thursday, now that we know about JOs, to kind of go over options. Again, we can't really solidify anything just yet. We do need to know about the high school season, and of course everything that we decide is still going to be quote unquote tentative, just because it's how do I put this, like, you know, we don't know how late this is going to go. Our team's going to be able to get in by June 1st. I'm hearing that there's going to be pools that are going to be available starting June 1st. I'm hearing other people aren't going to be able to start till August.
Wow. So, okay. Yeah, I haven't heard anything from my pool, so I don't have any idea.
I mean, but like, you know, we're definitely gonna have to find a spot for. We'd love to have tags still played. That is the 8th grade and 6th grade and under championships that's normally competed in the springtime. Whether or not that's in July, August, September, I don't know. We'd love to have. If everybody's able to play, we'd love to have some sort of zone-based kind of summer champs. There's going to be opportunities for people to have like a quick little mini summer league season or something like that for all those, like for all the players that just want to do something and play. Like even if they don't start till July 1, they are able to. You got to kind of get in there and do like a 4-6 week season, before school starts, because I don't think anybody's going to want to take a big break in August like we do normally.
Right.
And as I say big break, I mean like a 2-3 week break.
Yeah.
So it, like, you know, kind of teams still may want to take a week break, but it's still going to be, I mean, people are going to want to do stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask anyway, because you and I have had discussions about, you know, things that could fill the calendar that used to be occupied by JOs and qualifiers and so on. I think that's really cool about having sort of I'm just going to say unofficial zone championship or something like that. I think that'd be really cool.
We're also having, like, and I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but we're having the half games of Texas.
Yeah.
Which is the last week of July. That's only going to be for 14s and 12s. That's going to be in Corpus Christi that last weekend of July. This was on the schedule before. It's still on the schedule now. It's part of like a mini kind of a sports fest.
Yeah. That's really cool.
And there's to be fireworks and stuff like that on the Friday afternoon and evening, and opening ceremonies, and kids are going to be able to go to other sports. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Ooh, it's like our old JO's experience.
There you go.
Yeah, cool. A couple other things. We're going to take a break here in a moment. First of all, scholastically, Joe already mentioned that the UIL hasn't updated anything really since the last week. The SBC, in which St. Mark's is a member, has canceled the remainder of the spring season. It's obviously they're the only water polo team in that small conference. TAPS is the other private school conference, and there's no word from them, at least not publicly.
And that doesn't mean that St. Mark's can't play in the upcoming high school season if we end up having a high school season.
Not at all. It just means that that conference, their varsity programs, not their club programs, are finished for the year.
And then we have this upcoming Thursday. We started this past Thursday, the coaches to coaches. So.
Yeah. How did that go?
It was great. There was a little bit of the technical difficulties on my end. I've figured all that out and got it straightened away. And this upcoming Thursday, we're going to have Scott Slay. That's going to talk about counterattack. And Scott's from Viper Pigeons in Foster High School, kind of down in Houston. And then for next week, we're going to have Brandon Dion, and he's going to talk about starting kind of a high school water polo club and kind of how that is going to be and how he kind of used that to help grow his swim team and kind of what he would do if he was starting a high school team for the fall of 2021.
Nice. When do I get to do one?
They get to listen to us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or the Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They get to listen to us enough.
I can spin gold, man. Like I have so many good ideas. No, I'm delighted not to be part of that. That is made for other people to do, and so far it seems to be quite popular. In fact, it's gotten some national attention, so this is good to know. Okay, time for a break, and then we'll get into the best of Texas.
Right about now, you might be expecting some song and dance about a product you don't need. Well, shush, we don't advertise here, and we want to keep it that way. So we sure would appreciate your help. Show your support by going to TXWaterpolo.com/donate so we can keep covering the sport we love in the great state of Texas.
Hi, this is Natalie Benson, and you are listening to a podcast about water polo in Texas.
James and Joe back with you. We are introducing, as we discussed last week, our new feature, The Best of Texas. We're really trying to talk about the history of the state of Texas as far as high school water polo is concerned and the best teams that existed, and basically highlight just what a cool entire experience has been since 1972. As we talked about last week, Texas is unique. Like, it started earlier than many other states. So it's a point of pride, I would say. So we've actually put together a bracket of the top 16 teams, boys and girls, and they are teams selected from throughout the decades. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But first of all, we made one small change, which was that we were going to talk about the top 3 or 5 programs per decade, but that's going to get rolled into what we're going to talk about right now. And then we'll also come back later and talk about the best programs from each decade. We'll do that in a few weeks. But before we do that, let's talk about how they were selected, Joe. So you and others spoke with a bunch of coaches throughout the state and people who've been around the game for a long time to come up with this list. Is that right?
Yeah. So if people want to complain, you can complain to me. That's fine. I did talk to a bunch of people, and I got everybody's thoughts on the different teams. We used basically, like, teams had to be a state champion. They couldn't be a state runner-up. They had to be a state champion. We wanted to make sure that we had the representation from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the 2010s.
For sure, yeah.
We're probably, like, there was a couple times when there was a couple good teams that won back-to-back, but we only picked one of them to kind of represent that team or that program. So, I mean, is it perfect list? No. but it's the list that we have. There are going to be, we think it's pretty good, and it is going to be some interesting matchups along the way for sure.
Right. And if you might have any difference of opinion with this, then we'd love to have your comments about that. Maybe we're missing out on something that you know about more than the rest of us. But there is no perfect bracket. It's for entertainment and for fun, and it's a little bit of a statistical task to go through. But it's a cool way to recognize these teams that were so good over these decades.
And the way that we did the brackets were obviously we want to try to avoid 1985 Sterling team playing a 2001 Sterling team in the first round. So right. What we did was very unscientifically, we put the oldest state champion against the newest state champion. And then we tried to kind of keep doing that throughout. Sometimes, we wanted to avoid like a team playing each other. And then we put them on the different brackets. And then what we tried to do was in each little quadrant, we tried to if there was like the multiple Sterling teams, we didn't want two Sterling teams in one bracket,
right? Playing another, yeah.
And then we try to have a team from the 70s, 80s, a team from the late 80s and 90s, and then a team from the 2000s and 2010s in kind of in each bracket. So we try to spread it around a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope that there's going to be a lot of people vote, and they're going to get up there and then I assume you're going to have some little chat function up and available, and people can kind of talk smack and stuff like that. It should be a lot of fun. So
yeah, we'll put that out. So that's going to go live. Basically, it's sort of done already. I just need to make sure to test it and put it out live. It should be out later tonight or tomorrow morning. So
that's that's going to be starting Wednesday, April 15th.
So. Right. Yeah. For those, it's Tuesday. That's we're recording this right now. So yeah, Wednesday. And we'll leave that open until basically next Tuesday. And if we had to extend it for some reason, I would. It's not that big a deal.
And then we're going to be doing that each week. So this week is the brackets of 16.
Yep.
Then next week's going to be the Elite 8.
Yep.
The week after that's going to be the Final 4. Then we'll do the champions and the best programs the last week.
So. There you go. Yeah, I'm excited. So let's go through some of these matchups. I'm going to just chime in when you think one of these matchups is of particular interest. Honestly, for me, this is educational. Like, I do not really know about most of these teams. Of course, since 2010, I have an idea about them, but there's ones that you know about very well. There's ones that you know about because you spoke to other coaches. So let's go through these one by one. So here we go, girls bracket, and this is in no particular order. So it's not as though this first matchup means 1 versus 16 or anything like that. Joe already described that. So first matchup is the Clear Creek girls from 1977 versus the 2019 Foster team.
Well, obviously the 2019 Foster team, that's fresh in the memory. Scott Slay had a good kind of a good group of girls, a deep group, and they were going to come back and maybe be state champions again in 2020. But and the 1977 Clear Creek team, they won the first 3 state championships.
So this is a representative team in some ways. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, kind of in a way. So
yeah. All right, so next one is 1999's Cypress girls versus the 2007 Sterling girls.
I think this is just my personal opinion. I think the 2007 Sterling team was one of the strongest teams out there. They had Amy Olsen and Allie Hill and Tara Brigham and Darla Vasquez and Katie Vasquez. I mean, they were deep,
right.
And they even had a bunch of kids that were younger on that team too. That was probably one of the best teams that I've seen. So.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
It's same with well, do you know anything about the 1992 Sterling team? They're matched up with the 2006 Humble team, which makes
so the 1992 Sterling team was actually the first team that Mac coached, whenever he was there. And I specifically asked Mac, so you won a couple state championships there in 92 and 94. So which one was your better team? And he goes, the 92 for sure. And I think that's a team that he kind of inherited from Tom Landgraf, who was at Sterling kind of before that. And yeah. And he goes, and that team was deep and strong. Yeah, and then they're going against the Humble team in 2006. So that's the 92 Sterling versus the 2006 Humble team. And that was the last team in Humble high school history.
It was.
They had 8 girls on that team. 8 total girls, because what they did was they opened up another school in that school district, and they kind of rezoned. Coach Chuck Blackman, who was the coach at Humble, was leaving Humble after that year as well. So the new coach that came in, they didn't really want to continue the program. So a bunch of girls kind of stayed at Humble for a year. It was a mix of a couple kind of really strong kind of freshmen, sophomores, and a bunch of really strong seniors. They went undefeated with 8 girls.
Wow.
Throughout the year.
That's incredible.
And I think they won one overtime game against Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the 2007 Sterling team. So
that
was a good strong team in 2006 and 2007.
Very interesting. Yeah, I did not know about that. Anyway, that's followed by a matchup with our first team from San Antonio, Marshall, the 1987 Marshall girls versus the 2016 South Lake Carroll team.
Yeah. So I mean, this is obviously the 87 Marshall girls is kind of representative of the strong teams from the San Antonio kind of area, and I think it was Shannon Denson that kind of played and kind of led them, and they had just lost the previous 3 straight state championship games to Clark High School. So Marshall and Clark, both from San Antonio, played in 8 straight state championship games.
I know we talked about that before, but it's stunning. Yeah.
So and this is the last game that they played against each other. So.
Incredible.
And then the Carroll team, that was again a recent team. That was the first North Texas girls team that broke through them and won a state championship.
Yeah, that's the really important piece of news about that. That's really interesting. And Marshall returns for our next match as well, the 1981 team against the 2018 Geyer team.
So I think the 81 girls team, that was Valerie Bean, and she was probably on the national team back in the day. So she's probably one of the best players ever to come out of Texas. And that's against San Antonio Marshall. And they're going against the Denton Geyer team, who is probably one of the deepest teams in Texas.
Right.
I think they had 4 girls that are currently playing NCAA water polo. They also have they probably went 3 or 4 players deep, of which a couple more are also going to play NCAA water polo kind of once they graduate.
Got it.
I mean, so just kind of from that one group, you're probably going to have 8 or 9 players that are going to have played NCAA water polo from that 2018 Geyer team.
Wild. And the next is a team that is always at the top of the girls' rankings, St. Agnes, their 1997 team versus the 2014 version of Sterling.
Yeah, so the 97 St. Agnes teams, that was the Jenny kind of like Edwards teams. They had some strong teams there at the end of the 90s. I mean, Mac McDonald kind of mentioned it last week on the podcast. He thinks that this is the best team in the history of Texas girls water polo. They had size and they had speed and they had toughness. They had a ton of kids go off and play NCAA water polo. Again, a very strong team there. The 2014 Sterling team. So this was at the tail end of the Sterling dominance for the girls, and they won from basically 2007. I think they lost maybe 1 or 2 times in there, but they won the state championship from 2007 all the way through 2014 with a couple years that they didn't in there. But they won 6 NCAA or like the Texas High School Championships, and that 2014 had Callie Woodruff, who currently plays at Fresno State on it. And she's probably again up there as probably one of the best players ever to come out of Texas. So.
Right. And then 2001 Sterling versus the 2004 Clear Lake team.
Yeah, this is one of those matchups that's kind of close together, and I think the Sterling team, that was led by Shelby Slay, Scott's sister, and Jan Baldwin in goal. So there was a ton of really good players back then, and that was the year that Sterling won both boys and girls. So I think they had a strong team that year.
Awesome. And the final matchup before we head on to the boys is the 1984 Clark girls versus the 2016 Cypress girls.
The Clark girls, that team kind of represents, they won 4 straight state championships. Again, they were kind of that program that played in 8 straight state championship games. And everybody I talked to from back then, they all mentioned the 1984 team as the best team of that group, led by Mark Ellie. And the 2016 team, that was part of kind of back-to-back champions with Chandler and in the Cypress Creek team. They had a deep team that year. They had a deep team. I think they won also in 2017. I mean, and I talked to a few people, and everybody kind of agrees that they were a little bit deeper in 2016. So
got it. Okay, let's go on to the boys. We have an interview coming up with Mihai Oprea of St. Mark's. So let's run through these a little bit more quickly. Your first matchup is 1974's boys of Lamarck versus the 2018 Flower Mound team.
Obviously, everybody knows the current Flower Mound team. They were a strong team. They were in the state championship game a couple years back to back. Lamarck, that was led by Don Boyd back in the 70s, and some people said that was the best team in the 70s of the 70s. So
then 1991's team from Sterling versus 1998's team from Clear Lake.
I think the 91 Sterling team was probably one of the best teams ever. That was a bunch of kids that had played at North Shore and came over to Sterling in 91, and they also joined a whole bunch of a really strong team at Sterling, and they won back-to-back championships in 91 and 92. So
okay, and then next one is 1992's now you pronounced it Humble. I don't know whether that's the proper way to do it, but 1992 Humble versus 2001 Sterling.
Yeah, the 92 Humble, I think the leading player was Joel Broussard, that was like they again won back-to-back championships, and that was their strongest team of the 2 years. In the 2001 Sterling, that had Mac McDonald was the head coach. The assistant coaches were Scott Slay and Justin Pudwill. So that was some pretty strong coaching staff there. They had Andrew Pudwill. They had a ton of strong kids on that team. And so we're going to be doing a podcast kind of next week with Justin Pudwill, and he said that he thinks that's the best team in the history of Texas high school water polo.
Yeah, long conversation with him. That's we're looking forward to putting out there next week. Really interesting stuff. The next game is the 1985 team from Clark versus the 09 Clear Lake team.
So the 85 Clark team, again, they won 4 straight state championships, and that was the group that went 101-1. I talked to a few people kind of from back then. They went undefeated in that fall of 85, and that was by far the strongest team. They even had a kid that got excluded in 30 seconds into the first quarter, and one of their best players, and they still won the game by about 5 or 6 goals.
Followed by 1975 St. Mark's. It's their first championship before the program was halted for a while, versus the 2012 Strake Jesuit team, one that I know pretty well.
Yeah, this is 2 private schools kind of going at it. I think Strake had a very strong team back then. They had a couple players that went off and played in college. The 1975 team, that was probably the first team that won from North Texas. But again, those like that St. Mark's team and the Lamarck team were the top 2 teams from the 70s. So
yeah, cool. North and South too, because I didn't know Lamarck was basically Houston. I just didn't know. So next game, 1987's team from Marshall versus the 07 Sterling team.
Again, this 87 Marshall team is basically like a representation of the strong teams from the San Antonio kind of area in the 80s. They had a ton of players. This was the first year that they played in 4 straight state championships. They had a ton of players strong, from Ellis Eaton to Chris Oliveira, all the way down to Brent Coffey and Joe Vasquez and Matt. And the only reason I know them is because I was about the same age as those guys. So.
Right. Yeah. You those all popped right off the top of your head. So that's what we figured.
The 87 Marshall team is playing the 2007 Sterling team. Mm-hmm. And this is my opinion. I think the 2007 Sterling team is probably the best boys team that I've seen in Texas. That was the Zane Bellal and Matt Chapa and Stevie Ray team. So.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, that's an impressive lineup. Okay, 86 Sterling versus 2006 Cy Creek.
Yeah, so the 86 Sterling team, that was a tremendous team. They kind of broke through and beat a couple San Antonio teams. The 2006 Cy Creek team, that was kind of Coach Eric Sherrar kind of led the resurgence of the Cy Creek program. A strong kind of lineup, very great athletes, great swimmers, and a few of them kind of went off and played out in college too.
Cool. And finally, for our first round, 1981 team from Holmes versus the 2015 team from St. Mark's.
1981 Holmes team, that is Coach Kurt Swanson, led by Polo Gucic in the water. Strong team. I believe Polo Gucic still plays kind of masters water polo. That is that was a huge, strong team. Again, we're kind of right there at the beginning of the decade of dominance for San Antonio in the 80s. And the 2015 team, we talk about some of the best players ever. Kind of Timothy Simmons is going to be right up there with Zane Bilal and Stevie Ray, kind of Polo Gucic. You have a lot of strong players up and down the line, but Timothy Simmons and that 2015 team kind of represents that whole St. Mark's group that just has had a great run the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's well, obviously that's the team that I know the best of all of these, I would say, since I was pretty knee deep in following them. So that's it for now. We're going to send out this link later today so that you can vote on that, but we're going to take another short break and then come back with excerpts of a conversation, maybe one of my favorite ever, with St. Mark's head coach Mihai Oprea.
Hey guys, it's Ben McElmore with Houston Rockets. Just want to encourage you guys to continue to help one another, stay safe, continue to wash your hands daily, continue to practice social distancing as we go through this tough time, but we all will get through it together. Sending love to all our NBA fans. Hope to, get back out there on the court. Continue to stay quarantined, clean, and go Rockets.
Hey, this is Mark Lawrence from Austin College, head coach of the men's and women's water polo programs and home of our Kangaroos. When I'm interested in what's going on with Texas water polo, I always listen to TXWaterpolo Podcast.
Six-time state champion, several-time coach of the year, and a pioneer of water polo in Dallas. It's Mihai Oprea, head coach at St. Mark's. How are you, Mihai?
Hi, James. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Good. This is we're talking obviously in a time when we got some spare time about the history of Texas water polo, and it would be ridiculous not to get a chance to speak with you about it, given the success that you've had. St. Mark's has been a very successful program over the years and has won several championships, as we already discussed. You did eventually end up at St. Mark's, and it wasn't necessarily for water polo. When you signed a contract with them and that you knew that you were going to be working there, did you have any particular aims in mind?
Yes. So I was the aquatics director at Four Seasons, and through friends, I found out that St. Mark's was the only school in Dallas that had water polo.
In 75 and 77, I think, right?
Yeah, that was in the 70s. They won in 75, 77. Of course, it was a lot smaller state then, but they did win. But in the mid-80s, they dropped the program because there's no competition in Dallas. So all the games were in San Antonio or Houston, and the coaches got tired of traveling every weekend to play, so they dropped the program.
Right.
So to me, I went to the athletic director and I expressed hey, look, this is who I am. I would like to start it back. And he said, well, I'm not sure if we want to, but maybe we can use it to do other things here. And I said, fine. And then after that was in 96, he called me and said, you're not going to believe it, but I have like 3 or 4 kids that would like to play polo. So I came in 96 and I did a season of polo voluntarily for St. Mark's and then went away. And then in 97, they called me and said, look, we have a job for you if you want. And I came in and I started coaching volleyball and soccer. And then I started a rugby program. And then I started a team handball program. So I coach a lot of things. But, of course, the only thing in my mind was to start water polo again. And in 1999, I took the swim team as the varsity coach of swim team. And then from there on, I started pushing water polo and I built the swim team around the water polo team, which eventually in the long term was a great success for the swim team. And had to drop handball in 2009.
Finally.
I had to do it because we moved to spring and handball was a spring sport. So we dropped handball and kind of obviously moved on. Like anybody else in the state, was a kind of an explosion of water polo after 2009. So
I didn't realize you were involved in all the weird European sports that Americans don't understand. Handball, water polo. football.
Trust me, it was funny try to even introduce it to people, and but you're going to be surprised. Team handball was an immense success at St. Mark's. We played in Junior Olympics, won the California State Championship for 10 years.
Wow.
We hosted a Texas Cup, and handball was amazing, and we had some amazing kids, that now they played in NFL and all that played handball for me, and it was great. Rugby was also good. Judo, I had to do judo.
Wow.
So a lot of
eclectic.
Yeah.
Team handball is so awesome, and I admit I'm one of those who watches it, essentially every 4 years. So I'm missing out on it this summer with the delay of the Olympics. But it's not only, it's really fun to watch in and of itself, but it's also an incredibly useful water polo training method.
I think it's water polo on land. That's what I think of. It's no question about it. It's this. I mean, obviously you can do different techniques and different type of tactics because you're on dry land, but the whole idea and the concept, it's the same game.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So by the end of the 90s, you weren't yet a varsity sport. I think the swim team has long been established as one of the good teams in the States as a varsity sport, but water polo was not until 2004?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so how did that was that the plan all along? I mean, it only makes sense that it would.
Well, yeah, that was obviously the plan, but it was a uphill battle. As you probably know, since 98, 99, there are very few programs here. It was Chris Collin at Denton and Regina Moss at Richardson and Pierce and St. Mark's up here. And obviously everybody's starting from zero, and then moving on and getting a zone here in 2000 with Temple in our zone, and starting from there, so in 2000 when it was the first time for the North region to have a championship, so from 2000 to 2009, only the top team, the team that wins the championship in the North region, would go to state.
Okay.
But not really going to state. They'll have to have a play-in game to get into state.
Wow.
So we did that for years. In 2000, Temple won. Then from 2001 over for many, many, many years, St. Mark's won. And we won in. And of course, the first few years, we lost the first game by 30, 40 points, of course. We got destroyed. But then, like you said, in 2004, finally, we became varsity. That made a little difference, because we can attract a few more kids. But again, it was a long process, trying to get support from the administration, trying to get the kids' interest to play. You might know the pool at St. Mark's. We're very lucky to have one, but it's not necessarily good for water polo. So you're trying to sell a sport that you can actually practice in that pool.
Right.
So it's a long process, but it was a good one.
I admit that I've actually never been to the St. Mark's campus. I've been here since 2011, give or take a year or two. Yeah, so I need to make my way up there. So you are one of many Europeans who have come to this country with a water polo background, and I'm always fascinated about your experience with the athletes here. And what I mean is there's most definitely different cultures around the world as far as athletes are concerned. What was it that you learned about the differences in that Americans exhibited, in comparison with Romanians and other Europeans?
Yeah. No, I understand. Well, my biggest problem at the beginning was the lack of games and the lack of playing, because I had to be consistent on this discipline of kind of delay gratification and work on your skills, work on your fundamentals rather than just play. So I encountered this problem that the kids just wanted to play. They didn't want to spend time on conditioning. They didn't want to spend time on swimming. They didn't want to spend time on legs. They didn't want to spend time on ball handling. They just wanted to play. And it took a while to convince them through generations, that, hey, you just can't play. This is not playing. This is kind of like backyard play. You can do that in your own pool. That is not polo. So you pretty much had to change the entire culture of the program. So when a kid came to the program, they knew what to expect. They knew that they were going to have to bust their butts, in practice and conditioning and skills and technique and fundamentals. So I think this is what the difference that you are mentioning is the time that European coaches are spending on fundamentals. And I think, it's a total different culture, and the coaches there can be a little bit more strict. Let's put it that way. There are a lot more things you can do to your athletes than here. And the family will understand it, actually will support it. Here will probably get arrested. So, so you know what I'm talking about. But with time, if you develop a culture of hard work and discipline, and the kids actually like it. That's what I learned, that the boys, and I coach only boys at St. Mark's, of course, that boys like discipline. They really do. They don't want to show it, but we're pack animals, so they like discipline and they like leadership. So with time they learn, but it was tough,
That's a great way to put it, the pack animal things. And so you led your pack to its first state championship in 2009. What are your memories of that year and of that team?
Oh, it was just the most fun and most great memories, of course, because your first one, and we knew how long it took us, from the 2001 playing game when we lost to Clear Lake 42-1, I think, or whatever it was. And with having kids that could not swim 25 straight, and a goalie could not tread water for more than 10 seconds and had to go hang on the wall, and then end up winning a championship. I mean, can you imagine? It's just, it was, obviously, we won a few more times after that, but no one is as sweet as that one, because it was the first and it was unexpected for anybody, So we had a great group of kids at that time, not necessarily the best in terms of water polo players, but they had the heart, and that team would never lose. I mean, they would not allow anybody to beat them. So proud of them. It was just great memory.
So maybe a little bit less skilled than some of your later teams, but as much heart as you've ever seen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about when you talk about skill and fundamentals and swimming ability or shooting or anything, they're just like not even close to any of the teams from 2003 up. So, but again, they're a great group of guys, great leadership, and this attitude that I'm not going to let you walk over me, and took the challenge, and it was amazing. Very proud of those kids.
Right, and so then a loss in the state championships in 2011, and then a run that began basically 2014, in which you won 5 out of the following 6 years.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that you're more interested really in the consistency of this team over that period of time. So there's an 11-year period in which you were top 3. Is that right?
That is correct. From 2009, we were every year in the top 3. Either win, came in second once, and third, and that every year was by losing by 1 goal in a semifinal. So we're very close every year. We're legit chances to win. So exactly what you said. The consistency is what I'm really proud of that program, and the kids and everybody who was part of it. My coaching staff, that I think is amazing, with Spencer Dornin and Peter Hudak and Alex Stankovic and my wife with Mihai Oprea throughout the years. I mean, they're just amazing coaches, and we had amazing kids. So, to be there in the top 3 for 12 years, and I think we had legit this year would be probably in the top 3, and looking at the rosters and teams probably next year too. So that's a great run. So I'm really proud of that.
There's nothing more fun than speculating about who, and we're assuming that there will not be a state championship this year. That we might be wrong about that, but that's one of the most fun speculations is whether it's St. Mark's, whether it's Geyer, whether it's Foster, somebody else. Who knows? But it's a cool water cooler talk, as they say.
Absolutely. I mean, all these teams, Geyer is an exceptional team with Cameron and Chris Cullen as a coach, and obviously they have a unbelievable chance to win this year. Same thing with Foster and Scott, and maybe other teams did, but we do too. We always said, we do have a chance. And again, if we would not win, I'm almost sure we'd be in the top 3. So, but again, I hope you're wrong. I hope we have a chance.
Me too.
To play it, but unfortunately, I am so sad for the seniors and looking at like Chris's team with his son on the team and all the seniors he has on the team to not have this chance is tragic, and I'm so sorry, and for my kids too and all the other seniors there. It's just a tragedy, but it's not much we can do about it.
No, not really. Here, let's get into some controversial questions. My selection when Joe and I come to the end of the best team that I've ever seen is your 2015 team that Tim Simmons was the captain of. Right. And that shouldn't be a surprise, but I've only been here since 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
I will ask if you have a favorite or the best of your teams, but you don't. I wonder whether you want to answer that. But if you don't want to answer that, do you recall a team that you observed, not St. Mark's, that was the most impressive over the course of your career?
Well, you're right. I mean, I'm proud of all the teams, and we know we look better sometimes than other times, but I think each team that won was an amazing team, and but you're right. I mean, other teams that I liked throughout my career here, obviously Clear Lake, were kind of like the top when we started with Tom Landgraf there. Sterling with Mac and then Scott. There's some teams from San Antonio. I can't remember now exactly the name, but or the kid. And I'm sorry about it because this is one of the best kids I've seen on a San Antonio team. I remember, can't remember exactly the year, but Stray Jesuit had an amazing team, and everybody thought they were going to win. And we had this team from San Antonio. I can't remember the name of the kid but I think he scored 9 goals in that game and took Stray Jesuit out. And that was amazing to see. So there's some teams out there that I enjoyed. Cy Cricket sometimes a couple of years. So definitely lots of good teams, lots of good players, individual players. I haven't seen a team yet that would have 7 people in the water that are amazing. So. But again, there were 2 or 3, that they're like just amazing players, and these guys obviously end up playing college and Division I college, and there are a bunch of them from Houston, there are a few from Dallas, of course.
Right.
So it's hard. It's hard. I really have to start thinking really hard about this and kind of put it on the paper and look and try to scratch my memory to be, really fair in saying which team I think is the best.
That's all right. We put you on the spot for a reason, and again, we can talk to you offline about whether there's something that stands out. So
right.
We want to wrap up here because we've taken a bunch of your time, but the news is you're leaving Texas and going back to Romania. And so as you're leaving, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is that I don't think I've ever heard you speak about the UIL decision, which is detrimental to St. Mark's, which has had such success. What have you been thinking about that entire thing?
Well, I always supported it. And the reason I supported it is because I believe it's the right thing for the sport. And I think the sport itself is bigger than St. Mark's. It's bigger than any coach, because that's the future of the sport. So even though I didn't actively participate in meetings and all that, but I always supported. I always supported with Chris Collin, with Joe, and anybody else. I knew it would be bad for us, and we're working on figure out ways for St. Mark's, because evidently it wipes us off from playing in a state.
Right.
So that's probably one of the worst things can happen to St. Mark's, but one of the obviously the best things can happen for the sport. So I had to be fair, and I love the sport and I love the kids, and we need to do what's best for the sport, And again, unfortunately for St. Mark's, it's the best for the sport.
Well, can you tell us anything, and maybe you can, maybe you can't, about whether the SPC, which is the conference in which St. Mark's typically competes for the rest of its sports, it's a small conference within the state, but still has some pretty powerful members. Has there been any effort amongst them or any other conference to create its own sort of league or championship with water polo?
Yes, I know, like Joe and Chris Collin and myself, we tried. We got Green Hill to play for a while. We had the Cistercian play for a while. We are obviously now with the administration at St. Mark's, we're trying to help and kind of put a little bit of pressure on other teams from SPC and TAPS. To try to start a program, putting some pressure on Green Hill right now. You know what I mean? Pressure, just try to convince them that it's a good sport to do. So,
right.
So obviously this is the only future for St. Mark's, would be a private state championship. We tried, Joe Linehan worked really hard in the past. We had a couple of those, but only 3-4 teams. So we need to grow that. We need to try to recruit more SPC teams, TAPS teams. So a team like St. Mark's will continue to have a future in the sport. So because there'll be a shame to see that sport going or diminishing in any way at that school.
Well, I understand that your return to Romania might be a temporary one. You're not entirely sure. In 20 seconds, what are you doing back in your country?
Well, we built a pool with a couple of friends. So we have our own pool and fitness center, and start a program there with swimming, polo, fitness, swim lessons, anything that has to do with aquatics. And we are building that pool. It's almost done. I believe in 2-3 months from now, going to be completed. But like you said, it's nobody can look in the future and be sure how it works. So at this point is temporary. So kind of work out of the country, abroad, and see how it works. And never know. I mean, it might be something that I don't want to do. Maybe I just want to be here. So, but maybe something that would work. So at this time it's kind of in the air, but yes, I have to change gear and start working on that project now for me.
That might be a conversation worth having with you before you end up taking off, whenever that might be. I mean, obviously schedules are all up in the air at this point,
right,
but
right.
Something for us to talk about in the future. But until then, Mihai, it's been a delight to speak with you, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. It was same to you. Stay safe. Thank you, James.
That was at least part of my conversation with Mihai Oprea, the head coach at St. Mark's. There's more to be listened to on Thursday. We'll send out the entire interview. Just an amazing story, really, for those of you who don't know it. So look forward to that. But we are done. I mean, man, oh man, we covered a lot of territory. But here's our chance to remind everybody about what's coming up.
We have the Coach to Coaches this upcoming Thursday at 12:30 p.m. There's like the links for the Zoom meeting links are online at TXWaterpolo.com.
Yep.
And then next week, we'll do something similar that we're doing with Mihai this week with Justin Puddle.
Right. We'll have excerpts of his of Joe's conversation with him on Tuesday, and then release the entire interview on Thursday. It really packed full of information, like from state to state. Really incredible stuff. So anyway, I think we're done, right, Joe? Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, James.
See you next week, and thanks to Mihai Oprea in particular for taking the time to talk with us, and we thank you for listening and telling a friend about the TX Waterpolo Podcast. Find us on TXWaterpolo.com, especially since we're going to push out this poll very soon that we need your input. And you can find us at the podcast, our social media, to leave comments. Make sure to leave comments, because we want to know about these teams that we may have missed out on, and also give to the cause and generally stay up to date with what's going on. But until next week, so long from Austin.
I believe in the horizon of a better place. Busy hanging out my thoughts to dry, 'cause I've been in the rain of my unconscious ways, trying to turn the world into a playground with all my might. Tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, waiting in line.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.
My dog is scratching at the door.
I can hear him.